So Metro Exodus takes place in 2036. You play as Artyom once again, our protagonist from the first two games. In terms of the wider Metro storyline, it sort of follows on from the events told in Dmitri's final novel, Metro 2035, so the two kind of overlap a little bit. They were actually both created at the same time. So there are elements of the book within the game, but you don't need to have played a previous Metro title. It's a self-contained story that starts in Moscow and then takes you on this incredible journey. So each environment has its indigenous population, so human factions, different populations of mutants, whereas the previous games you had these three factions within the Moscow Metro. Now as you journey across Russia, you're going to see how new societies have developed and survived in this post-apocalyptic world. So every time you get to a new area, you'll have no idea what to expect, what kind of survivors you're going to meet, how they've coped over the last 20 years. The mutants are specific to the location, so each season has its own mutant types. And because we've kind of moved to these large open areas, kind of think of them as miniature open worlds. They have these self-contained biomes where mutants might be out hunting for prey, humans might be patrolling, and when the two meet, they might interact in an interesting way, or you might get into a fight with some humans, and then the noise attracts a pack of mutants, and they come in. So we can do some really fun things with this more emergent gameplay there than we've done in previous games, and their behaviours will also change depending on whether it's day or night. You can manipulate that, so if you find rest places, you can set the time of day. You might find that during daylight hours, there are more humans on patrol but less mutants, whereas at night time it's a bit more dangerous, but then you can take a more stealthy approach if, say, you a sort of human encampment. So it all kind of ties together into this really rich system. Sure, so in the previous Metro games, we had a currency system, and you could buy new weapons, purchase upgrades for your weapons, but only at specific trading points along the way. And that just wasn't going to work or make sense or provide good gameplay in these more open environments. So we've changed to this crafting system. So now you're hunting for two types of resources, chemicals and materials, and you use those to craft the med kits, gas mask filters that you need. You can craft secondary weapons and ammunition. You can craft at any time in the field, so you can just open out your backpack, customize your guns on the fly, craft the critical things that you need, and then every so often you might encounter a workbench where often you can rest as well. At a workbench, a whole additional array of options are available, where you can also clean and maintain your weapons. So if you fall in the river or get them dirty, you can actually see that build and accumulate on the weapon, and its performance will degrade. It might jam or overheat more frequently, so you need to use chemicals to clean and maintain your weapons when you find a workbench. I think it's more to change the atmosphere and environment. We use a lot of environmental storytelling in Metro. Like each new location should almost feel like, as I say, a new miniature world to explore. So there will be specific features to each area, like different weather conditions, for example, that will have an impact on gameplay. But it's more to do with the atmosphere. Well, it's probably more than one thing. This is by far the studio's most ambitious game to date. If you think that the first two games were very similar, really. Metro Last Light was a refinement of Metro 2033, but it was essentially cut from the same cloth. So a very linear, cinematic, story-driven shooter, very much inspired by Half-Life 2. For Metro Exodus, the team wanted to do something very different, so both in terms of scope and scale and environment and location. So from a design perspective, we've introduced these new open levels that you were talking about. That was probably the biggest challenge, to add this new level of player freedom, but still make it feel like a Metro game. And they spent a huge amount of time in prototyping to get that balance right, get that formula right. And then just the fact that we've left Moscow. So previously you were only playing in the subway tunnels beneath Moscow and occasionally venturing out onto the surface, which was locked in this perpetual nuclear winter. But in Exodus, you're going to travel across the entirety of post-apocalyptic Russia over a calendar year through 4 different seasons. You're going to see different environments, the likes of which you won't have experienced in a Metro game before. So we've shown 3 of them so far. You've not seen some yet. It's my personal favorite feature about Metro and why. So many to choose from. For me, it's I think it has to be the weapons. I mean, we've always had these incredible guns in Metro. They've always been designed with this principle of realism in mind. But for Metro Exodus, the design team just took it to a completely new level. So all the weapons are mechanically accurate. You could rebuild them. They would function in real life. They're made up of interlocking parts. The amount of detail that goes into creating these guns is unbelievable. I honestly think we have some of the best guns in any shooter. They've all got unique personalities. They handle very differently. Yeah, they're just a joy to play with, and I guess that's pretty good for a shooter, right?